you, Dr. Kieke, for that introduction, and thank you to the rest of the science faculty for having me here today. It's great to see you all, and I love being with students, so it's really nice to be back. So I've given this talk at a few universities, and I found, I'm not surprised, that at-home DNA tests are a topic a lot of people are really interested in, and they want to know, are they useful? They have a lot of questions. So I'm hoping to answer some of your questions. If you have questions anywhere along the way, just raise your hand. You don't have to wait until the end. If you're like me, I would forget my question by the end. So just kind of jump in if there's something you want to know. So I am in genetics, and it's a field I find fascinating. And I love this quote from James Watson, who helped discover the structure of the DNA helix. We used to think our fate was in the stars, but now we know that in large measure, our fate is in our genes. Now, of course, I don't think everything about this is due to our genes, but it does play a very important role along the way. So what I'm going to talk about today are three areas that relate to at-home DNA testing, and that is ancestry, forensics, and disease. And I try to weave in either some personal stories or some things in the news, some headlines that you might have heard over the past couple years. So, Dr. Yang a little bit kind of alluded to this, but by a show of hands, how many of you here have already had an at-home DNA test? Don't be shy. I've done it for fun. I've done a few of them actually. Okay, so not very many of you. How many of you are maybe interested to do one? Okay, great. So, according to Technology Review, in 2017, 12 million people did an at-home DNA test. And the pictures show you some of the vast variety. So many of you are probably familiar with one of the popular tests, 23andMe. They look at ancestry, a few health conditions, and traits. So traits meaning, is your earwax wet, or is it kind of crumbly and dry? So in that, it can tell you that. Paternity testing is something I get asked about. Ancestry, of course, the one on the bottom left here is to try to figure out what breed your dog is. This one up here, what kind of wine might you like? So there's a whole variety of tests with varying levels of quality, accuracy, science behind them. I'm a little skeptical. I love wine, but I'm not quite sure a DNA test can tell me what wine I like. I'd rather just try it. So this is a booming market in 2017 again. This consumer, or I'm going to call them direct-to-consumer, DTC, tests that you order at home were worth $359 million. And they're projected to grow to almost $1 billion by 2023. So this is a lot of money, a big market. It's estimated that about 1 in every 25 adults is going to order a DNA test. People are interested in genetic testing, and this is a poll by the Associated Press that shows the first question, over on your left says, how many of you have had a genetic test? Not a huge amount of people, about 17% out of the 1,100 people that were polled. But if you look on the right, 60% of people would want to know if they carried a gene that was associated with some kind of disease. And over 80% of those people would tell their family members if they did have some kind of disease gene. I probably won't go too deep into this, but this is part of the same poll. The orange bars are showing people who've already had genetic testing. The blue bars are showing people who haven't, but they're interested in it. And they ask you, why do you have genetic testing? And as you can guess, the biggest answers were things like, I want to know my ancestry. I want to know if I'm at risk for an inherited disease, or if I were pregnant, I want to know if there might be something going on with my unborn child. So I'm going to start out with a little background, and kind of the point is a lot of people are interested in genetic testing, and it's a huge market. So now I'm going to go into my first part of the talk, which is about ancestry. So here's a personal story. This touches home a little bit with me. This handsome gentleman on the slide, Shellie Kieke, is my maternal grandfather. He passed away in 1979 when I was 6, but I do have memories of him. And his story is a little bit interesting because he was dropped off at an orphanage in New York when he was an infant. It was an orphanage run by Catholic nuns. And he actually lived at this orphanage until he was about 5. And then he boarded a train that came all the way to the St. Cloud area here in Minnesota. And he was adopted by his adoptive parents, Stephen and Mary Kieke. He was their only child, so he grew up with the Kieke family. And he had no idea when he died who his parents were, where he came from. All they knew was he had been in this orphanage in New York. Just a few years ago, a cousin of mine, along with my sister-in-law, almost at the same time, separately figured out my grandfather's ancestry. So this is actually a copy of his birth certificate. He was born Felix Franklin, although I question that last name. It might have been modified in New York to sound more American because his parents were from Italy. And I don't really find Franklin to sound especially Italian, so it was maybe changed. But at least now we know that his parents came from Italy. So this made me wonder, if I do an ancestry test, will I have some Italian in my test? And so here are actually my 23andMe ancestry results. And sure enough, at the time I did this test, this was a few years back, it was about 6% Italian. And as someone whose pretty much whole entire family is from Germany with a little Scottish, I was elated to have something a little bit more exotic in my bloodline, which is Italian. I also love Italian food, so very happy to know my grandfather was from somewhere different. So what are some things you should consider if you're interested in your ancestry? First, some of these, you may have heard in the news, and we will get to this, that people are using DNA information to solve crimes. So we'll get to that in a little bit. As you saw with my grandfather, although he didn't live to see what happened with his ancestry, there are people who are adopted who are finding their families of their parents. You might find out about a mysterious branch on your family tree. I didn't know I had an Italian branch, so that was interesting to me. Your family's ancestry might not be what you think it is. So some people are actually pretty upset when they find out, wow, I lived my whole life being Norwegian and we made all the Norwegian food and all the customs, and then I'm not Norwegian. So that sometimes that has happened. And then there's unexpected results. We'll get to that. So are these tests accurate? I'd say, some of them are, maybe, approach it with some skepticism. So every company that does these tests is going to use kind of their own proprietary database to do that. And some of my talk will get a little sciencey, but don't worry if you're not in science, I think you're still going to get some of the main points, even if some of the science jargon is not outside of your realm. So they use something called ancestry informative markers, or AIMS. But what's interesting is, so they are looking at markers in your DNA, and they're comparing them to current populations in Africa, Asia, America, Europe, the Americas. So I think a key point to know is, even though we're trying to figure out your ancestry, remember, we're not looking at ancestors from long ago. We're looking at currently around the globe, where do you most match? Okay, so we can't go back in time and test. This is not a database of people from 1,000 years ago. This is basing your DNA on people who live right now. Where do they live? Where do they match? Okay. There's also really not a lot of oversight on these tests. There's not kind of an independent body that's saying, yes, this is a valid test, it's accurate. It's a little bit of the Wild West out there. So, there's a couple companies that are popular that I feel like are probably doing a reasonable job, but I think there's a lot of accurate tests that are pretty questionable, and you should question that before you kind of take it too seriously. So different companies do use different methods to figure out your ancestry. They have different draw conclusions about where your ancestors might have been from. So if you had ancestors that migrated a lot, that's going to skew, where people are today versus where your ancestors are from. So this quote from Adam Rutherford kind of sums up what I've been talking about as far as, remember, they're not telling you where your DNA comes from in the past. They're telling you where on earth your DNA is from today. So that's a little bit different than some people might think. Also, so they're basing your sample on a big database of a whole bunch of other people, right? So the database that they have matters. And this is a problem across the board in medicine and ancestry testing, clinical research. It's getting better, but the big problem is a lot of databases are largely the white European population. So that's, going to be a detriment. If you're not white and of European heritage, that accuracy is going to be different. So, what kind of database do they have? What type of people are in there? How big is the database? So when you look at your ancestry, as you can maybe imagine, the continent it tells you is probably going to be the most accurate, but when they're trying to zone into like individual countries, that's probably not going to be quite as accurate when you get those results. They will vary from company to company. So I did kind of the two most popular ancestry tests out there, and they were different. They weren't exactly the same. And here's the other kicker. As they update their databases, they get more people, maybe they change their algorithms and methods, your results will actually change over time. So here are my results again, but this is a more recent snapshot of my ancestry. And look, now I am 11% Italian. So, like I said, you can't, I wouldn't use this in a really serious way. It's kind of more for fun. It does match up with what I would have expected, my ancestry, what I've been told. But, if you really want to know, make sure you supplement this kind of test with, kind of more concrete data. Public records, birth certificates, death certificates, asking your family members, all of those things are really good. Hopefully that can help find you some answers. Okay, another thing that DNA testing has brought are what I consider Pandora's box. So people will give somebody an ancestry test at Christmas and think, oh, this is so fun, let's see what your ancestry is. And then that person finds out something shocking like, your dad is not your dad because the person you called your dad does not match you at all. And maybe there's even somebody else in the database that is a 50% match. There's your dad. So this does happen. I actually know someone who went through this experience. And there's actually a support group on Facebook called NPE Friends, Not Parents Expected. Okay, so it can sound a little funny, but actually it's pretty traumatic for most people to find out this is not my parent or this is not my relative, whatever the situation is. There's actually, I should have put the title up here, but if you want to get kind of a good sense of how traumatic this can be, there's a really great book that came out, I think, last year. It's called Inheritance. Pretty simple title. And it's by Dani Shapiro. And it's her true story of getting a test for Christmas. It sat on her shelf for a couple years. She finally did the test, and then her whole world, what she thought was her whole heritage, kind of tumbled to the ground. And she really talks about not only solving that mystery, but what did that do to her emotionally. So it's really an interesting read. So we already mentioned the support groups. I'm not going to read this one, but another consequence is, this is a story about a young woman who knew her father was a sperm donor, but now she's found out that she has at least 29 half siblings. Some of them want to connect, some of them don't. She talks about having a spreadsheet of all her half siblings and their birthdays as they try to get together. And she wonders, how many more half siblings do I have out there? So you wouldn't have known that really before DNA testing. That was private, but these are another consequence. And And then this actually just came out. This is a brand new news story that I added. This one was kind of interesting too. So Holly up here is 45. She did a test, and she had an exact match for a young gentleman named Patrick, who's 25. This is Patrick and his mom. How could she match another person? Turns out when she was 20, she had a blood cancer, and they gave her a cord blood transplant, and that cord came from baby Patrick. So she knew she had a cord blood transplant, but I think she didn't really quite connect. Oh yeah, so now my DNA is Patrick. So technically, if she committed a crime, I guess you could wonder if Patrick really did it, but I believe she did get to meet Patrick. He's 25, and she was a DNA match for her because she had a transplant. Okay, so next, forensics. How many of you out there heard about this case in 2018, solving the Golden State Killer? Anybody? Oh, good. A few of you. Okay, this is a huge story. And the way that they solved this crime, this is a crime from the 1970s, so very old case, almost 50 years, was fascinating, and it's changing forensics. So the Golden State Killer has been known back in the 70s and 80s. It's thought that he actually committed over 50 rapes and 13 murders in the California area. You can see the clustering of where these crimes happened. And they had some suspects in mind, but they were never able to convict anybody until just last week. So how did they finally get this guy in bars? So here's what they did. The police, along with help from a woman I will introduce you on the next slide, used a database called GenMatch. So what this is let's say I get an ancestry test from a company, like 23andMe or Ancestry DNA. I can take that raw data from the test, and I can choose to freely upload it into this database called GenMatch. And the reason a ton of people were doing this is that helps you connect and find relatives. If there's 5 labs that do ancestry tests, and my relatives do them at all different labs, we'll never connect, right? Because you have to test at the same lab to connect to your relatives. But if everybody loads them up into one big database, now you will find cousins or distant relatives or so on. Okay, so people have been using this. And the kicker is, remember, people are choosing to do this. So it's out in the public. This is not, so the police can't go to 23andMe and say, I want to know Joe Smith's data because we think he was the Golden State Killer. They can't do that. But a smart woman figured out, this is free, people are doing it, we can go look in there. So what happened with this case is there's about 1 million people who have uploaded to this database. They figured out that one of the suspects had they had his sample from the crime scene, his DNA. His DNA kind of distantly matched people that were probably third cousins to him, and they were able to backtrack and figure out, oh, these are very distant relatives to this guy. Now we have a more justifiable cause to go after this guy. And it turns out he threw something in the trash, and I was asking my lawyer friend, if you throw something in your trash can, you're throwing it away. It's not yours, right? The police can go in the trash can. So they were able to go in this trash can and get a cigarette or something, and they were able to match this cigarette DNA with the crime scene, and that's how he got convicted. So it all happened because of this database that people were using. I just saw that, so of course this brought up a lot of questions like, is that ethical? Should that be allowed to go into this database and solve a crime? On the other hand, this is a very violent crime. All of these families don't have any answers about who committed these crimes. How do you balance that? And the Department of Justice just gave out a preliminary statement kind of putting some rules around this. So I think right now they're going to make a final statement in a few years. But the preliminary statement talks about things like we're really focusing on violent crimes. We have to try all the traditional methods first. The FBI has a database of fingerprints and DNA. You try that first, if nothing comes up, then you could maybe move to this kind of thing. So they are starting to get rules around when you use this. So this is the woman who really helped come up with this plan, and it's been used now in multiple cases. Her name is Barbara Ray Bender. She is a PhD scientist and a judge. She has a law degree. So she is the one who really did this whole database matching and figuring out how we catch the Golden State Killer. Some of these signs, if you have ever heard the name Bender, there is a famous scientist named Craig Bender who was involved with the Human Genome Project. This is his former wife. So I'm not going to read this one, but this was also a similar case. It caught my eye because it involves Minnesota. This involves a guy who was living in Wade Park, which is up by St. Cloud. So it was kind of a similar thing. There had been a prostitute who was murdered back in the 90s. She was 35. They never caught anybody. They actually hired this Barbara Ray Bender woman to try to backtrack and figure out. So she found distant relatives that matched the sample of the crime scene. And it was kind of interesting. She was able to figure out that the match was probably a grandparent. Then she found some obituaries on findagrave.com, and she figured out for these grandparents, a couple of their grandsons had moved to Minneapolis. And that's where the crime happened at the time, it was in Minneapolis. So she's able to backtrack with this guy, Jerry Westrom. Very likely was the son who had moved to Minneapolis. He had been convicted of a sex crime for soliciting a prostitute. He was living in Minneapolis at that time. So it all kind of added up, sure enough. Poor Jerry threw his napkin in the garbage at a hockey game, and now he's in jail. And I say poor, because he committed a terrible crime, and thankfully they were catch him. So, just a little food for thought on these things like this database. The journal Science suggests that a database like this GEDmatch could identify right now maybe up to 60% of white Americans. So they could solve a crime and figure out, if they knew your basic information, like your age, they could potentially find you through your distant relatives in these kind of databases. And as more and more people add to this database, which is 2% of the adult population, they'll probably be able to identify 90% of white Americans. Okay, any questions about ancestry testing? Well,
so, you said that your ancestry went up from 6% to 4%. Is that because more women in your past?
It's probably their database getting bigger and then kind of refining their algorithm or their method of figuring out. Yeah.
Let's say I did a DNA test and they compared to the DNA test specific town for my family's school.
In a sense, they're doing anybody in that. You have to have people from the town in the database, so they're comparing you to whatever many thousands people that are in the database. They're seeing, okay, you mostly messed up with people in that part of that country. Yeah. Sorry, what? Oh, what program for algorithm? That's proprietary. The companies that do these tests, we don't know exactly how they do it because it's proprietary. Oh, what did I do? I did 23andMe and Ancestry DNA. And I just did all the tests I've done have really been for fun. I'm a scientist. I'm not going to make people talk about, don't make any big medical decisions on these tests. I did it just because I was interested and just sort of for fun. And the two were similar, but they weren't identical. And like I said, they'll change over time. If I go look at it today, it's probably different. So, where I've seen this come in medically, this isn't a big deal. So we had a woman who came with her OB and she was pregnant. And there's a lot of diseases that are very prevalent in the Jewish population because they tend to intermarry and kind of carry the same genetic conditions. And her ancestry test said she was 0.1% Jewish, and they gave her a screening test for Jewish diseases. 0.1% Jewish is probably not really relevant. It's probably so far back. And if she had no idea she was even Jewish just from family talking about it, probably don't have to worry about a Jewish screening test. So that's just one example.
So you're talking about the database that your gene is different stuff. What's the results of it? They keep updating the results, right? So it's not a test, but probably
That's right. Right, because I took it, oh my goodness, maybe over 10 years ago is when I took it. So, yeah, you could go log in every day and just see what's different, you know, or I think if they add a new health condition, I think they need to have a lot of data, they can go back and update that.
I know you mentioned that they're going to make a statement later, but do you think this could be the government mandated thing, or do you have to send it through DNA?
I don't think so. I mean, they can't really force you to reveal things about your privacy without a just cause anyway. I mean, they can't come and search your house or do other things. I mean, I don't know. I think that would be kind of scary. I think you would have to have some kind of just cause to, I mean, when you're charged with the crime, then you're in the DNA database for the FBI, I believe. So then you kind of give up that right. But just your average person, I can't really see them reaching that privacy like that.
Yeah, so when you talk about the word transplant and word love transplant, the only reason why they match is because they're people blood, right? So the DNA, if they put other part of the body, it is not changing. And, you know.
Right. Yes. Yeah, you're right. Have to be blood transplant.
So they can still discern if you can find privacy.
Yes, if they did like a skin sample or something. Yes. Yeah. But a lot of DNA tests are blood or saliva, but blood would get you because it would match patterns. That's a good point.
How do you think your results are?
How, sorry, what?
Accurate,
It's hard to say. I mean, one thing you can look for is 23andMe does have FDA approval as part of their test. That's the Food and Drug Administration. So that's kind of a stamp that, okay, we have looked at the quality and accuracy. Beyond something like the FDA, it's not right. So maybe this is a good time to tell you, I've seen talks given by other genetic counselors. They have sent in a dog sample, and they got back a report that said, your son is going to be a great athlete someday. Now I can assure you, any lab of any quality would quickly realize this is a dog and not a human. It's different DNA, and this lab did not do that. Another genetic counselor lady, she sent in water, and she got the result back. Now these are very highly not the big labs you all know about, but there are probably, there's hundreds. I don't even know how many labs are out there doing these tests. If they're not one of the big guys, if they don't have FDA approval, apparently you could just send out a report and water. And that's really unethical and scary to me. Yeah.
so how do you
Oh, thank you. That is coming up. And that is a highlight of my talk because I do want to tell you, I give people DNA tests all the time, and I will absolutely share how are they different. So thanks for leading into that. Let's come up, I think, in like 2 or 3 slides. So just to give you a sense of why we do genetic or DNA testing, you're not going to be surprised, but these are some of the reasons that genetic counselors like myself see patients. It might relate to disease. If we talk about pregnancy and does the child have Down syndrome or some other condition, people want to know, will I pass it on to my children? We do screen newborns in Minnesota for over 50 conditions. So there's a lot of different reasons why you might get a test. And I think it's really a fascinating time in genetics, especially for you science students. You have any interest in genetics. The field is exploding. They can't fill the jobs in genetics, and it's really evolving quickly. It's very, very interesting. So there are actually about 75,000 different tests. Now those aren't all different, but available tests you can pick from. And they estimate that 10 to 15 new tests come out every single day. So why are there so many tests? Why are there so many new genes we know about? Why is this evolving? A very big reason is a technology called next generation sequencing. This is a way to very quickly and very inexpensively analyze DNA. I don't have time to really get into the details, but the old way we used to analyze DNA, I think of it like riding a horse and buggy into town. And the new way of analyzing DNA, I think of like an Indy 500 car. So it's just much easier, quicker, faster, cheaper. We can now look at thousands of genes at once. We can look at all 20,000 genes in your DNA pretty easily now. So here is your answer. So what's different about the test you get from me versus something like Shellie? Okay, so we have at-home tests on the left, clinical diagnostic tests ordered by a physician, ordered by a genetic counselor, somebody in healthcare. What's different? Okay, so we can order these at home. That's pretty convenient. This is ordered by a medical provider, which is listed. Little to no oversight at these tests. I can't get into all the details in this, but we did talk about the FDA. There are several national regulating bodies that make sure this lab is quality, they're accurate, they're doing what they say they're doing. Okay, so that's regulation is a good one. I'm going to show you in a minute. We're really only looking at certain parts of the DNA in the at-home test. So people say, is it accurate? That's an important question. But I think the more important thing is these are very incomplete tests. So I'll show you what that means. For the tests that I do, it's going to be usually a very complete analysis of the entire gene or multiple genes. These are pretty inexpensive. Clinical tests are quite expensive, but often they are covered by insurance if they're warranted. If there are real clinical reason to give you this test, often they're covered. These are not covered by insurance. And then the kind of support you're going to get varies. For this one, if I give you a test, you're going to meet with me or talk with me afterward. I'm going to explain the result. What does this mean? What do you do next? How do you manage your health the best? Probably not get a whole lot of that from the at-home test. And I know. And unfortunately, one of the biggest companies has no genetic counselors to help you as a consumer. They say, go ask your doctor, who probably has little to no training in genetics. Doctors are very smart people, but they don't learn genetics. Or they say, go see a genetic counselor, and there's not enough of us, we're already swamped. It's hard for us to take on all these test reports versus our patients who have real diseases in their families trying to help them. Okay, so speaking of FDA, how many of you heard this story last year? They approved breast cancer gene testing last year. How many of you heard that? A few of you. So here's the problem, or what you should know about getting breast cancer gene testing. That sounds useful. I want to know if I have the breast cancer gene, I would have up to an 85% lifetime risk to develop breast cancer, and also a high risk to develop ovarian cancer. I can get mammograms, I can remove my ovaries, I can get a mastectomy. There's things I can do, right, if I have this gene. And at-home tests give you easy access, and they give you low costs, right? So I'm going to kind of go into the problem in a minute. First, I just wanted to give a very quick background of, well, what does inherited cancer mean? So 85 to 90% of cancers just happen by chance. Certainly they involve changes in the DNA, but they're not inherited or passed down in the family. These are things that we look for in families that have the inherited kind. So about at a young age is a red flag. Multiple family members and multiple generations on the same side, so maybe it's mom's side or it's on dad's side. Somebody who's had more than one cancer type. Cancers that go together. So when we see breast and ovarian cancer in the family, that's a warning sign. Unusual cancers, men do get breast cancer, it's really rare, but any man who has breast cancer would be an immediate candidate for a genetic test. And then if you get cancer in both organs that are hair, that's another sign. So I'm not going to go over that part, but I do want to talk about, so what about this 23andMe test? So you asked about accuracy. This test for breast cancer gene does have FDA approval, so that gives us some assurance that it's accurate. Here's the problem. The test is incomplete. So there are two genes that increase the risk for breast and ovarian cancer, BRCA1, BRCA2. This test looks at 3 changes in the DNA or mutations. We know about thousands of mutations that increase that risk. We're looking at 3. So lesser Jewish, which has a higher rate of these mutations, less than 1% of people who aren't Jewish are going to have one of these 3 mutations. So a recent study showed that about 90% of the people who actually have a breast cancer gene mutation would be missed by the 23andMe test. So what does that say? If I got a negative test result, meaning no mutations, am I in the clear? Not by far, right? It means I don't have 3 of the mutations that are less than 1%. So that's the problem. If it's positive, now I know I have it, there's things I can do. I can see how that, can be useful, but a negative really tells you nothing. So, just a little bit of sciencey stuff, but I think anybody can kind of get this. Here is another big difference between at-home tests and clinical. I kind of alluded to this, but now I'll show you. So at-home tests are typically doing a method we call genotyping. So let's say this is part of the DNA code for the breast cancer gene. DNA, 4 letters, right? A, G, C, T. That's our code. In the breast cancer gene test, they're looking at 3 spots for about change. So let's say this is one of the 3 spots, so letter C going to an A. They're looking at very distinct, maybe a couple spots, whatever, in our letters in the code. So they're just taking little snapshots. This is a spot we know that C goes to an A. We know that increases the breast cancer risk. Okay, so that's accurate, but what about all these other letters? The test that you would do in the clinic with me looks at every single letter and for every possible change. So not just one letter C going to A, but that A is not going to a C, T, or G, and how is it changing? So it's going to look at every letter for the most part, exons only, but I won't get into that. And then also looks for, is there a big chunk of that code that is missing? It got deleted out. Or is there an extra piece that got inserted in? So it's really looking pretty comprehensively at the whole gene versus one little snapshot. Okay, so any questions about that one? Okay, so this is certainly could be accurate, but it's not complete. Another thing to know if you do an at-home test, pretty much any national body or genetics professional will tell you any result you get on an at-home test that's medically related needs to be confirmed with this kind of test with a genetic counselor or physician. A recent study has found, so this was small, it was only about 50 patients, but there's been a second study, it's not published yet, but it was presented at a big meeting. 2 studies have now shown that about 40 to 50% of at-home results are incorrect when they were tested by a clinical diagnostic lab. So this clinical lab figured out, here were some samples that started as a DNA test. We're going to retest them, and about half of them were wrong. In my world, when I do a test, 50% error is not going to fly. It must be in the 90% typically. Tests I give are 90, 99% really comes in, I'm going to give this warning as a public service announcement. A company like 23andMe, you can ask them for your raw data. So this is all of the genotyping that they did. You know, they're going to tell you about a few diseases, traits, ancestry, but you can get all of your code data that they have. The problem is, for a very inexpensive amount, you can take that raw data, send it to a third party, another company, and ask them to, quote, analyze it. And this is where things go really wrong. We had a woman, for example, who came in with this very often bogus raw data analysis. She thought she had like 3 breast cancer gene mutations. Probability-wise, that's not even, that's astronomical odds to have 3 breast cancer gene mutations. It turns out none of them were real mutations that would like increase her risk. So she's freaking out that she has all these mutations with breast cancer and none of them were real. When it comes to these clinical tests, the guidelines of, you know, when we see a change in the code, what does that mean? Does that change increased risk of disease? Is it meaningless? You know, what does it mean? There's very stringent guidelines of how we call that classifying that mutation. Is it really disease causing or not? There's very strict and defined guidelines for clinical tests. That all applies out the window, and you're just giving it to a company. Say, here's my raw data, you know, tell me what it means. In that case, so things to consider before you order an at-home test. So, number 1, understand what the test can and cannot tell you. So, back to the breast cancer gene test. There's a small chance, if you're not Jewish, it will tell you that you have a breast cancer gene mutation, but there's an apparently 90% chance it will miss that mutation if you truly have it. So, that's one thing to understand about that test. The other thing is a lot of the things on the at-home test are telling you about increased risk or decreased risk of something. Increased doesn't mean I'm going to get it, right? So there are some diseases I see people for where if you have the gene mutation, 100% you will get that disease. Some of you in science might have heard of Huntington's disease. That's something I see in neurology. If you have that mutation, you are going to get it. But a lot of things are, okay, there's like 80% chance, or, you know, so even if I get an at-home test with the breast cancer gene positive, that doesn't mean I'll ever get breast cancer. And you want to know, what is that number, and what can I do to reduce my risk? Another thing, let's think of the psychological. Do you really want to know if you have a disease? Or, you know, do you really want to know if your dad is not your dad? It's really easy to spin in the tool. It's not so easy to take those results and face the fact, oh, I have an increased risk for Parkinson's disease. Okay, did I want to know that? What does that mean? And then think about, you know, what will you do with that information? What will it tell you? And then what do I want to do with that? Will I be proactive? Will I see a medical professional? Will I make changes or get extra screenings or do what I need to do? But how will this information really help me? All right, these are my last parts. So, some critics of the at-home tests, these are some of the things they bring up to think about. Privacy concerns. So, all of these tests have, you know, pages and pages of a privacy statement. Probably most people don't read them, but you might want to kind of read them and see before you click the box with, how are they using my DNA? Or just say, how are they stored and used? Who owns that data? So it turns out GlaxoSmithKline Beutow paid 23andMe $300 million for their data. So this is not individually like they know this is Shellie's DNA, but they are getting this big data set from your data collectively, and they're using it to try to develop drugs. I'm guessing that they can also get access to, you know, you can fill little surveys about your health, and and try to see, okay, we know some of your genotyping. Now we know, oh, you have sleep apnea, or you have this, or you are obese, or whatever, you can choose to tell them information about your health. I'm guessing they're maybe trying to match some of that. Honestly, I'm not sure of the details of how they're doing that, but that's my guess. And then also, as I said, there's kind of very little regulation and oversight. 23andMe used to offer the breast cancer genes years ago, and then in 2015 they were kind of shut down by the FDA until the FDA could look at the quality. The FDA eventually did give approval, but they did shut that down and say, look, you can't tell people about cancer gene mutations unless we really regulate and see, are you doing this actually? Okay, so I'm curious, there's other questions, but has your view of at-home genetic tests changed? Now that you've heard some of this information, so you can kind of just think about that today, or if you have a comment, you can let me know, but this is kind of the last chart, I think. So questions or comments on what you've heard?
So the genetic testing was likely covered under
so I'm glad you asked, like I forgot to say something else about clinical tests. A lot of times clinical tests are only covered if there's kind of a reason to do it. You're pregnant, you want to know about your baby, you know your family has a disease in it, and I can get that disease. I have symptoms of a disease, I want to know what is it that I have. Is it muscular dystrophy or what's wrong with me? So you usually need a reason, but I'll tell you the newest wave is going to be, this just started last year, 2 of the clinical testing labs now allow you as a consumer to go on their website and order 2 clinical tests for cancer, and one of them is offering for inherited heart conditions. So that's what I would put my money into if I wanted to know more, because these are regulated quality tests that I can offer you. They now allow you to order them directly, and the way that they're doing it is you do need a physician to sign off. You can use their physicians at their company. So you can think what you want about that, but for me, at least I know you're getting a valid test if you want to know something. And insurance is right now is not really paid for healthy people. If I walk in and say, I have no history of cancer in the family, but I want to know if I have a breast cancer gene, insurance is not going to say, sure, we'll just pay for that. But I could go to one of these 2 labs, buy their test, and get actually a good quality test for, I think they're around $250. They do. In fact, one of them I asked about this. If you are positive, they don't release your report to someone. And I was so glad to hear that, because I know I don't want my inbox to say, here's the breast cancer gene. Have a great day. I want someone to talk to me, right? So they are, yes, they do have genetic counselors on the phone, or you can say, I want to go speak to somebody at the morning or wherever I want to speak to somebody about it. So at least the report does explain it in a reasonable way too. 23andMe, I don't know if it's changed, but they used to have like little up green arrows for increased risk and little down arrows for decreased. And that's scary, and that doesn't work out. I had a guy with a prostate cancer report that had a little arrow up, and his odds ratio risk was 1.1, and 0 is no increase in this. So 1.1 is not a lot, but when he saw that arrow, he freaked out. And that's where I came in and told him, you've never had prostate cancer in your family, your PSA, which is a chemical blood, is normal, your odds ratio is really low, probably not. But he was very worried. The tests I give are mostly blood, and that's going to kind of give you the most robust quality sample. But the at-home things are usually saliva, so or buccal is cheap. So either you're spitting in a tube with saliva, or some of them have like a juice tip kind of thing where you're scraping in your cheek and that's going to give you cell DNA. So those are kind of most common. Blood at the hospital, you're not going to do that at home, but saliva over cheek samples. They shouldn't, as long as, you know, if the sample isn't DNA isn't quality enough, they can't really run the test. They'll tell you, like, I had a woman who had passed. I do give families testing when someone's passed away. Their mother had passed away from cancer. We still had a tube of blood in the hospital from other tests, but it was getting, no, actually, this is a different one. This is the family she had spit in a tube for an ancestry test, and she never mailed it in. And it was like a year old. But I said, you know what, we can just send it in and try it. And they couldn't complete the whole test because it hadn't been completed by that time, some of it. But they actually did complete the sequencing part, the little letter by letter part. So they did do kind of the majority of the important part of the test. So a good lab will at least tell you, like, in case the sample's too bad, we can't do it, or we can maybe be part of the test. So it's, you know, that's why I told the family, or I don't know what's going to be in this tube, but you can just try it, and they won't charge you if it fails. I mean, there's no result, they won't charge you. So it was worth trying because we didn't get it. Great, any other questions? Oh, yeah, thank you, yes.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you, very much.
They can sell to the government, they can sell to law enforcement, they can sell to your This is good.
But I understand because people are interested in their ancestry, they're interested in their genetics. And if I can go on the computer and in 5 minutes order a kit instead of a tube, I mean, it's easy, it's cheap. But yes, you need to think about those